diet culture is pretty much everywhere around us in every direction you look, and we've all been conditioned to think that we should pretty much always be dieting or trying to lose weight. So that is why the first principle of intuitive eating, reject the diet mentality, is so important. And that's what we're talking about today. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know, I'm Melissa. I am a registered dietitian, and here on my channel we talk about all things food and nutrition. Today we are diving a little bit deeper into intuitive eating. I've done one or two videos about intuitive eating, kind of general overviews or a couple steps to becoming a more intuitive eater, but I decided I wanted to talk about intuitive eating a little more in depth. So I'm going to make a video covering each of the 10 principles of intuitive eating, probably like one a month. Just so we can dive a little bit deeper into it, and so I can give you guys a better idea of what intuitive eating is and how to make steps to become a more intuitive eater. I feel like intuitive eating is kind of gaining more traction. A lot of dietitians are starting to become more non-diet dietitians, which I think is so great. But, you know, not everyone has the time or the means or wants to go see a dietitian. So I want to provide you guys with as much information about intuitive eating as I can. So of course, we're going to start with principle 1, which is reject the diet mentality. And even though this is the first principle and it's so essential for, you know, being an intuitive eater, honestly, it's one of the hardest. For me, it's been the hardest as well. I consider myself a pretty intuitive eater. You know, I'm really good at listening to my hunger and fullness cues and not using food to numb emotions and things like that. But I feel like all of us have kind of been conditioned to feel like we should always be trying to lose weight or be on a diet or doing something to change our bodies. And it's really hard to let go of that. Even as you know, think you're becoming really a very intuitive eater, it's hard to not have that in the back of your mind. So let's talk about what rejecting the diet mentality means. And that doesn't mean just don't be on a diet. It really kind of encompasses your whole philosophy on food, exercise, and your body in general. You know, not eating foods that you think are going to make you lose weight so that they make you lose weight. Not exercising to lose weight. Not looking at your body and thinking, if I was just, you know, 10 pounds lighter, I would be so much happier. All of those things and everything that encompasses really falls into the diet mentality. And that is not to say that you shouldn't exercise or eat healthy food. As you'll see later in this series, exercise and gentle nutrition are two principles of intuitive eating. So those are things that are definitely emphasized. It's just the thought behind those things, which a lot of us do exercise in order to lose weight or eat vegetables, not because they make us feel good, but because we think that they will make us lose weight. And this also means rejecting diet culture, recognizing diet culture, and letting go of the thought that might be in the back of your mind that, you know, there might be another diet that comes along that might just kind of magically fix everything. And I think this can be really hard for people. Like I've said, we're so conditioned to feel like we should always be on a diet or feel like we should always be striving to lose weight. And honestly, once you recognize it, diet culture is everywhere. You know, it's not just models and actresses. It's everywhere on social media. It's in the way we talk to each other. It's in food advertisements and honestly just everywhere. And that also includes any type of dieting tools. So things like MyFitnessPal or other tracking apps. You know, if you do find that the scale can be kind of a trigger for you, getting rid of your scale, things like that will help you let go of that mindset. So how do we reject the diet mentality? So the first step, and I think a lot of people kind of need to hear this and they've never been told this, but know that you are not the problem. Dieting and diet culture is the problem. So in the book Intuitive Eating, which I will link down below, it's a really great resource, and if you're interested in intuitive eating, I would highly recommend that you read it. But they talk about the dieter's dilemma. So the dieter's dilemma starts with the desire to be thin. So then you go on a diet, and then from this diet you're restricting, which causes cravings and the feeling of loss of control. And from those cravings, you end up losing control, giving into those cravings, but overdoing it, and then overeating. And then overeating leads to regaining the weight and oftentimes gaining it more. And this happens over and over. And if you are a chronic dieter, have been on many diets, this probably sounds familiar to you. And pretty much with every round of the dieter's dilemma cycle comes feelings of guilt, feelings of failure. But it's important to recognize that you were set up for failure to begin with. You know, diets don't work. The science shows diets don't work. By restricting yourself, cutting out food groups, all of those things, your body automatically craves them. When you don't give your body enough, it automatically wants more. And you having those cravings and giving into those cravings is not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign that you failed. It's biology. That's just what happens. So really, you were set up for failure to begin with. And now not only have you made yourself miserable through the diet, now you've regained the weight and probably more, because you're also hurting your metabolism when you're doing that. And on top of that, you're adding these feelings of failure and guilt and unhappiness to that when you have quote unquote failed this diet. So really, the most important part, I think, of rejecting the diet mentality is recognizing the science behind diets. If you are someone who wants facts, wants numbers, go look it up. The science is clearly there. Diets don't work, and it's super important to recognize the damage that diets are doing, not only to your body, but to your mental health as well. And then I think I challenge you to go a step further. Once you've recognized that you're not the problem and diets just don't work and you are only hurting yourself by giving into this diet mentality, dig a little deeper and think about, why do you always feel like you need to be on a diet? What do you think will happen when you reach this goal weight or change your body? And I think it's really important to reflect on those questions, because if you're honest with yourself, you will most likely realize that being a certain weight is not what is going to give you happiness. And restricting yourself and losing weight is not going to bring any fullness to your life. You know, trusting your body, letting your body do what it's gonna do, and not constantly thinking about food. You know, think about when you're on a diet, everything revolves around food. You're always thinking of food because you're always hungry, or you're meal prepping food, or you're not going to certain restaurants because there's nothing that you can eat, or you're spending time poring over menus, figuring out what you can eat, or, you know, all of these things. When you trust your body and you aren't restricting yourself or dieting, think of all the things that that time can go to. Think of the experiences that you can have when you're not worried about what food you're gonna eat while you're doing them. So, you know, I know that this got deep, but I think digging deep and realizing where that fullness comes from in your life, realizing that your size, your diet is not one of those things, is so, so important for rejecting that diet mentality. Okay, so that is principle 1, reject the diet mentality. I hope that you learned something. I hope that this helped you. I hope that if you needed to hear this, that you're listening and that this provides you with some support in starting to reject that diet mentality. The dogs would also like you to do that. Again, I know that even though this is the first principle, it's oftentimes the hardest. So don't get discouraged if it's not just a switch that goes off. You know, it takes time. So do your best. Please ask me any questions in the comments section, or, you know, if you have been through this intuitive eating journey, then also feel free to add some advice in the comments section to everybody else. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe if you have not already, and I will see you next week. Bye.